Hey everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Brutus Monroe video. Today I'm working on something gifty. So I'm going to pull out the Comfort and Joy stamp set. This box is actually still available. And then we're going to be using the rectangle foundation dies. We also have the Magenta Glitterstock. And then we have some Elegant Essentials Gilded Cardstock along with several Aqua Pigments. We have those in Lime, Cider, Sunflower, Dahlia, and I'm going to bring in Hunter later on. I'm going to use some embossing ink, and then I thought about using my Raven Ultrafine embossing powder. It's just a black, beautiful embossing powder, but I changed my mind and I decided to use the Raven Sparkle because, yeah, y'all know I love me some sparkle, and that stuff is incredible. So let's go ahead and stamp our image. Like I said, this comes from the Comfort and Joy stamp set. And it's actually a part of the inspiration box, which is an amazing deal, and it's still available, so I'll have that linked down below, and it's available until it's sold out. So and after that, then the stamp set will hopefully be available, but it may or may not be. So what I'm doing is I am inking up the stamp using some embossing ink, and then I stamped that onto some watercolor paper. I covered that with my Raven Sparkle embossing powder, and it's nice and black and glittery and just perfect. So I'm going to heat set that till that is melted, but I did use a magic powder bag ahead of time, so that cut down on any of the excess powder sticking to places that I didn't want it to, and as you can tell, I didn't really have any issue with that. So once that's all heated and done, we're going to move on to using our Aqua Pigments. Some of them that I've chosen have a little bit of sparkle to them, and that settles at the bottom, so I'm just shaking those up really well, and then I'll put a little bit of those on my glass mat. A little goes a long way. This is a lot more than I actually needed. So if you get these, they're going to last you a while, but I love my Aqua Pigments. And they, obviously are watercolor, so they're going to work best in layers. And what I like about Aqua Pigments is that they are so forgiving for those of us that may not be real great at watercolor or that aren't great at mixing our colors. These make it so easy to mix. So all I'm doing is just putting down a wash of my lime Aqua Pigment onto my tree. And the reason I decided to emboss it, because you could completely skip that step and just use your Raven Detail ink, I decided to use the embossing powder not only because it's beautiful, but also because it gives a nice beautiful raised edge, which makes it super easy to continue watercoloring without having to wait for things to dry in between. And so if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't done the embossing, I wouldn't be able to move on to the little baubles on the tree. So I'm just kind of sticking that color down in there, and it's staying in the wells very nicely because of the embossing. And then this is where I decide I want to add a little bit of depth. So I'm going to bring in my Hunter color. That does not have any sparkle, but I am mixing it, as you can tell, with my lime, and I'm just sticking it down where I think the shadowing would be, and then I can come in with some more of that lime and drag that color out. And it does such a beautiful job of adding some depth to your coloring. And this is what I was talking about. If you're not really great, and I'm really not that great at mixing my colors, so having them in liquid form makes it so much easier to be able to mix what I need. And then, you know, if you don't like it, you can add a little more of one color, a little more of the other, whatever you need to do. But for somebody like me, this works out really well. I often, when I'm trying to do regular watercolors, have a tendency to mix too much, and then I feel like it's a total waste. Alright, once I'm done with that, that's all the mixing I'm really going to do. I'm going to set that off to the side to dry before I move on to anything else, but let's take a look at how sparkly that is. Isn't that beautiful? Ugh. The embossing powder and the Aqua Pigments that I used are just so beautiful. Now I'm going to take my rectangle foundations dies, and the bigger one that I'm using that on my Elegant Essentials Gilded Cardstock, and then I'll use the smaller one on some of that Magenta Glitterstock. I will end up taking that big one once again through my die cutting machine onto some white cardstock because I am making this a tag, but it can also be used as an ornament. So I'm running that through my die cutting machine just as is, and that'll go on the very back of my piece. And so this way it'll give plenty of room for to be able to write to the recipient if I want to. My next step would be to fussy cut out the tree, and I know some of you are cringing at the idea of fussy cutting, but this is a pretty easy image to fussy cut, and as you'll notice, I just mostly move the paper. I'm really not moving the scissors a whole lot. Obviously just a little bit, but if you hold your scissors fairly still and move your paper around, you'll get a much easier cut. And I'm leaving a little bit of a white border all around my tree. It'll make that tree stand out just that much more. Once that's done, we're going to actually adhere down our Glitterstock to our Gilded Essentials, our Elegant Essentials cardstock, giving it a nice gold border. And then I'm going to pull out some baker's twine because this is going to be for the top of my tag or ornament. It could be either one. And then I'll just cut that and then flip over my piece. And I'm going to attach that down actually with a little bit of washi tape to start. You could use purple tape. You wouldn't, I suppose, even have to use this, but I wanted to make sure that it would really stay in place. So I'm just sticking that down, and I'm going to put some of that liquid glue all over my white cardstock piece, and then I'll attach that down, and so that it's almost like a seamless little ornament or tag there. Once I'm done with that, we'll flip that over, kind of let that dry a little bit, and we'll start putting some of the Brutus Monroe black foam tape on the back of our tree. You'll notice I didn't use a sentiment, and you could obviously use a sentiment if you wanted to, but I decided to just leave this as a little Christmas tree. And then I'm going to use my paper piercer to peel off all of the release paper on our foam tape. It just kind of gets under there pretty easily and makes it that much easier to pull that off. And then once I stick that down, that's going to finish off our little gifty tag or ornament, however you want to consider it. But I love that the back has plenty of room to write the year or, you know, just a little note to your recipient or whatever you might want to do. But if you liked this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.